So I've been looking around for something that can rival the Nitecore EDC37 in terms of output, but is also way better value, and I think I've finally found it. This is the classic Convoy M21B. I've reviewed a few of these in the past with different emitters, but this one is special. It has a beast of an emitter, the new LPH73B, and when paired with the 20 amp regulated buck driver, produces over 8,000 lumens by my estimates. And here's the best part, it's only $23, and in Australian dollars that's 35. So yeah, I mean the male version I have here does cost a little bit more, but has the same performance as the normal anodized version. I actually ran a ceiling bounce test with this and my Nitecore EDC37, and it was about 10% lower in averaged lux readings. And if you've seen my EDC37 review, I actually go through there why I think the EDC37 produces closer to 9 to 10,000 lumens on switch on. So let's have a look at what you get in the box. Now, here, of course, you get the M21B. It doesn't actually come with a battery unless you add one to the cart. That's another $6 to $10. I'm just using a Samsung 30T. Here, it's got a really high drain capacity. And this is the box that it comes in. You know, with all Convoy packaging, it's pretty basic, and I like it that way. It just keeps down all the marketing costs, and you can see they always have a little white sticker here just telling you the specifications and the LED driver. All right, so here is my Convoy M21B micro arc oxidized version with the LPH73B next to a few other flashlights that I own. And of course, I've got the Nitecore EDC37 over here. And I know I'm going to get a ton of flack for comparing these two in the first place. They're quite different flashlights in terms of overall features, but the main thing I want to focus on here is the output, and especially extended output of 8,000 lumens. One of the main comments that I got when I reviewed the EDC37 was that basically when you activate that highest mode, that 8,000 lumen mode, you can see there's like a little power button, not a power button, a little power remaining bar there, and then it steps down like that, okay, to prevent the light from overheating. Obviously, you've got that 8,000 milliamp battery in there in quite a confined space. It's a lot smaller than the Convoy M21B, so I can see why Nitecore have had to implement that feature, but you don't have that same issue in the M21B. So I've activated a mode grouping in here. I'll talk a bit more about that later, but basically it always starts on 100%. So you have that 8,000 plus lumen output, and it will step down at about 30% very, very slowly, but you can turn off and turn back on and reactivate that 100% mode straight away. Now, given the head gets extremely hot, which I will again do some temperature measurements on the head that you can visualize later as well. But yeah, I mean, compared to the cost of the EDC37, really the performance is on par, if not better, in terms of sustained output as well. So yeah, I just think this is something that a lot of people can get. You know, like I said, costs about 20 to 25 US, and that's the normal anodized version. If you want the micro arc oxidization version, that's going to cost you, I think, another $5 to $10. But there's no difference in performance over these two. It's just the coating on the outside. So I've had a number of these M21B hosts over the years. This one's got a CULPM1 F1, so green emitter in there. And you can get a whole bunch of different emitters. I'll go through the Convoy website in just a moment. That's the Convoy M1, so it's very similar. The head is pretty much identical to the M21B, except it takes a 18650 cell. So yeah, it's a little smaller, easier to carry along with you. And of course, I've got the Convoy S8 and the Convoy S2 Plus also in micro arc oxidation here. These are much more pocketable flashlights. And I've had the S2 Plus, I don't know how long now, probably for at least 2 or so years since I've last reviewed it. It's holding up pretty well. There are little scratches and dings on there. So I do find with the micro arc oxidation, it does does tend to get scratched up or marked fairly easily, just due to the nature of the coating. Is quite light as well, but you know, look, it holds up okay. All right, so I'm on the Convoy official website at the moment, and I've just changed the currency to US dollars because I know most of the viewers here from the US, but in Australian dollars, I think that's about $35. Yep, $35, which is, you know, pretty affordable if you ask me for a flashlight, especially a flashlight of this quality and brightness. And there's a few different colors available. Like I said, the normal anodized version with the LPH73B, the same LED that's going to produce the 8,000 plus lumen output. It says burn hazard. And, you know, it does get pretty hot. The head gets pretty hot, but yeah, I'll talk a bit more about that later. It's actually not that bad. And you can see here, if you want to include a battery as well, there's a list of batteries. You need to get a high drain battery. For people who are already into flashlights and have a ton of lights at home, this is probably, you know, you're probably going to have some batteries already. But as you can see, that, you know, $6, there's a $4 battery there that you can chuck in. So it's pretty cheap to add in a battery if you don't already have one. And here you can see there's a few different colors that you can choose from, and the anodizing is kind of like a slightly glossy finish, slightly smooth. Don't know why. Oh, there we go. We've got the black version. That's probably the version most people are going to get. Interestingly, the LHP73B also comes in a couple of color temperatures. So you got 5000K. If you want something more neutral, I got mine in the 6500K. This is pretty cool. You get a 1-year warranty now with Convoy if you order on their website. And you can see here, you know, there's some information on the flashlight, a few more bits of information. So it tells you with this LED, the LHP73B, you get an orange peel reflector, 12 mode grouping driver, which basically means that you can, here it is. Yeah, basically means that you can change various modes. You can program in different modes. So here is a little example here, and basically you just have to get into the flashlight, tap it 20 times when the light is on, tap the switch 20 times, and you can then go through and basically select all one of these modes in here. So I tend to select this mode here, the 1.3 mode, so it always starts on 100% and then goes down to 35, 10, 1, 0.1. So there's a few other, you know, lower modes in there that make the light much more usable because you're not going to be using that 100% mode all the time. Let's have a look what else there is. There's this one here, so mode grouping 12, which basically allows the light to operate only on 100% every time you switch on. Probably wouldn't recommend this one unless you knew what you were doing, but yeah, that is available. There's also, I think, a 50% one. Here we go, 1.9, that always starts on 50%. It's interesting to see as well that there's a battery check mode in some of the groupings, okay? And yeah, I'm probably not going to go through all the details of how to go into the mode grouping, change it, that type of thing. The instructions are all here, but I have also made a video on my channel showing you how to do this. So I'll link that in the video description if you want more details on actually how to change the grouping. All right, so this is the M21B with the micro arc oxidized finish, the same finish that I have at the moment. And let's see how much this is. It is $28. It's actually only a few more dollars compared to the normal anodized version. So that's not too bad. Let's see what it is in Australian dollars, maybe like $40 or something. Yeah, $43. So yeah, you do pay a little bit more for this coating if you like the actual style, the look of it, I suppose. But yeah, there's no other difference. There's no other performance difference. And there's batteries and stuff like that you can add on as usual. All right, so here's a little close-up of my Convoy M21B with the micro arc oxidized finish. And it's got an amazing kind of matte finish, very pale gray, almost white. And I like that it has some grippiness to it as well. Feels a bit chalky. And yeah, this micro arc oxidization finish, it's just got a bit more of a premium look and feel to the standard Convoy anodizing, which is more kind of shinier, I suppose. It's in between like matte black and shiny. Still a decent sort of finish, but if you're looking for something different, I think this is definitely the one to get. It's basically a layer of aluminium oxide on the exterior of the light. And you can see there's also a ton of these cooling fins on the head, which you'll see later on will really come in handy to dissipate heat. And yeah, it's good to mention as well, re-mention again that you do get a 1-year warranty with this light. On the back of the light, you've got a single switch there, rubber switch, and basically a lanyard hole or a clip hole. You can attach clips in there if you want. And yeah, there's no onboard charging, so you need to actually have an external charger or a battery that has one of those USB-C charging ports on it. And the good thing as well is that you can actually just undo this flashlight without any special tools. They didn't include any lubricant on these threads. I've lubed up that end, but I'm going to need to do this side in later. So here is a little close-up under the bezel of the Convoy M21B, and you can see the LPH73B in there. It's actually composed of 16 smaller square die surfaces that form one large square die surface, and it's pretty amazing. It's a huge LED there, de-domed, so the advantage of that is that it's going to produce much more throw, have higher range than domed LEDs. You've got an orange peel reflector in there. It looks like Simon's included one of those white gaskets at the bottom, which are really helpful. They just make the beam look a lot nicer and better focused, reduces artifacts. You've got a glass lens on the front. It's all sealed up very nicely, no dust underneath, and get this kind of crenulated bezel here on the top, slightly recessed lens, so that's going to protect the lens. The Convoy M21B comes with a huge amount of LED options, so yeah, just make sure you select that LPH73B if you want that 8,000 plus lumen output. And yeah, I sort of selected all the different LEDs, and in terms of price, they don't differ that much, maybe $1 or $2, you know, for the different LEDs. So, and you also get that regulated 20 amp buck driver, which is really rare for lower price flashlights. It just means that you're going to get much more consistent, sustained output after step down. So yeah, like I said, I'm not going to go through all the different mode groupings. You know, I've made a separate video going through that. But yeah, basically there's a whole bunch of different modes that you can select. Now I'm on that third mode, so it always starts off at 100%. And then 35, 10, 1, and yeah, 0.1. It is actually on just barely like a kind of moonlight mode, I guess. And what I've done as well is that I've deactivated memory mode, so you can get into the UI and change that. So say if I'm on, you know, this lower mode here, I turn it off, it's not going to turn back on to that lower mode. It's going to go straight back to 100%, which is what I want. I always want that light, the light to start on 100%. Now, keep in mind, you do have to wait like a second or so. If you're too quick, you know, it just cycles through the different modes, okay? But to actually go into the mode groupings and change them, you turn it on, and then you have to keep mashing that button basically, and then you'll get a series of interface options that you can change. But yeah, I'll link that down below. Basically, when you're switching modes, you just half press and full press to turn on and off. Okay, so I ran a bunch of ceiling bounce tests with the Convoy M21B, LPH73B 20 amp buck driver, and this is the 100% mode. And you can see you get close to 45 seconds of runtime, close to maybe 1 minute of runtime where the light is on 90 to 100% of output. Then you see a pretty sharp decline here, and at the 1.5 minute mark, you're sitting on about 20% output. Keep in mind that you can turn the flashlight off at that step down point, turn it back on, and it will start again at 100%. Here is a second ceiling bounce test that I ran on the 35% mode, and you can see you get just over 2 minutes of runtime on 35% before the light steps down to just under 60% output. On the 100% mode, I got 460 meters of throw. Really impressive, especially for the small bezel and the large die surface. You really get the best of both worlds, flood and throw, but mostly flood. And you can see the CCT ranged from 5,600 to 6,400K, and the CRI was on the low end between 64 and 67. Here are some temperature measurements that I took with my Thermal Master P2, and you can see the maximum thermal measurement here. And, this is keeping in mind that I'm not holding the flashlight when I'm testing it as well. So does get hotter when you're not holding it, but it was surprising that by the end of the 6-minute test, the actual battery tube was still fairly comfortable to hold, especially if you're holding it the entire time. You're going to be fine as long as you're not touching the head. So I still think that's really amazing. 20 amps, 60 watts running through this light that you can still hold on to the barrel. That's amazing. Okay, so some considerations if you're thinking about getting this flashlight. The first one is that it gets pretty damn hot, okay, the head especially. So this is not a flashlight really for the faint-hearted or beginners. And initially when I was carrying this thing around, I was worried about it accidentally turning on in my jacket pocket. So I ended up just taking out the battery and storing it in another pocket. So yeah, if you don't reactivate the 100% mode over and over, it's surprisingly bearable to hold the light once it steps down. It's able to actually dissipate that heat quite well with all these cooling fins on the head. And yeah, in my thermal test, like you saw before, the battery tube reaches over 40 degrees Celsius, but it will be cooler if you're holding onto it. If you keep reactivating that 100% over and over, the head's going to get pretty hot and eventually the battery tube. But I still think it's amazing that you can just activate that over and over again in case of an emergency. The second consideration is this micro arc oxidation coating. Like I mentioned before, the threads are really squeaky because they forgot to apply lubricant. I've applied some on the tail here, so it's fine now. So just watch out for that if you're getting this version. There's no mechanical lockout as well on the micro arc oxidized version. So, just unscrewing the tail there, not working. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're going to be storing this thing in your pocket, you probably want to remove the battery. The other option is to just get the normal black anodized version here. And as you can see, it will mechanically lock just fine. I do find with the micro arc oxidation coating, it doesn't seem to be as hard wearing as type 3 anodizing. And I did bring my old Convoy S2 Plus here on screen before, but you can see like near the tail, there's little bits of metal exposed there. Have dropped it a fair bit, and just small markings there on the head. It's kind of difficult to see here on camera, but otherwise it's actually held up quite well. But I do find, just the normal anodized versions, as you can see, there's a few small dings here and there, but for the most part, there's pretty much not a mark on them. The final consideration is that some of these Convoy flashlights, not all of them, because some do come with USB-C charging, they can be quite challenging for people that are new to flashlights. So with the M21B, there's no onboard charging, so you need an external charger or a battery with a charging port in there. There's also no clip, so you'll need to purchase one separately. I just use a clip from one of my Workhorse flashlights, and it's the same with the battery, but like I said, you can just add one to the cart very easily. But yeah, if you're going to buy a battery and charge it separately and you don't know too much about lithium batteries, you probably want to do some research on lithium battery safety, check out some of the forums as well, and get recommendations from actual users. People use these things out there. And I actually made a Convoy help group on Facebook. I'll link that below in the description as well. So I think there's nearly 6,000 members out there now. I actually didn't check it for a while, and I checked back, and there was a few thousand people in there, and yeah, everyone's just happy to help out with questions. So yeah, have a look at that. I'll link it in the description. So overall, the Convoy M21B with the LPH73B is hands down the best value 8,000 plus lumen flashlight out there. This thing is an absolute beast, and I find it amazing that almost anyone can get one. They're sold at pretty much wholesale prices. So yeah, if you're interested in getting one, check the link in the video description below. And if you have questions as well, just let me know down below in the comments. I'll get back to you. I'm not paid by Convoy to make these videos or to promote them. I'm basically, I guess, unhealthily obsessed with their flashlights. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, click the like button and share it with a friend, someone who might be interested. Just helps me to get the video out to more people. And if you want to see more flashlight reviews, keep up to date with the latest flashlight news, make sure you subscribe. Convoy M21B with the LPH73B. This is on 100%. Holy cow. Yep, that's a lot of light. And this should be producing 8,000 plus lumens, 20 amps. And yep, I'll tell you what, the head is getting pretty hot. And this is actually nice because it's a fairly cool night tonight in Melbourne. Look at that, just lights up this entire field like nothing. Turn it off, turn it back on again. Jesus. Okay, let's step this down. All right, so we're on 30% now. All right, 10%. And these lower modes are sustainable. 1%. And you can't see this one, the lowest mode. And let's put that on the highest again. 100%. I really like how it produces a focused beam in the center, but you've still got so much flood. And flood does start about maybe 6 feet in front of me. I'll go for a walk. And that burst of light's going to be so important when you need it in an emergency. I've set this to always start on 100%. Even that 30% is pretty incredible. Convoy M21B with the LPH73B. I've had to actually adjust the camera so that it doesn't blow out the video. It's just so bright. Illuminating this path all the way into the back. And hopefully no one walks through here or comes through on their bike anytime soon. But that's 30%. 10%. You lose a bit of range there. 1%. 0.1. And here we are back at 100%. Unbelievable. I'm gonna go for a walk. Convoy M21B with the LPH73B to the left, and I've got the EDC37, Nitecore EDC37 to the right, and both on at the same time. Okay, that's the Nitecore here, and the M21B, Nitecore M21B. And as you can see, the Nitecore has stepped down already. Okay, I can reactivate it actually I can't, I've got to just wait, but the M21B is still going. I think the big difference with the Nitecore is the beam pattern. As you can see, it has like quite a wider sort of flood. It's got more circular flood beam with the M21B. Look at that, it's still going. It's incredible. And you know, it's starting to step down, but I can turn it off, turn it back on again. Oops, let's get it back to the highest mode, 100%. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean with the EDC37. It's still recharging. The power bar is still recharging. It's about maybe 3/4 of the way full, so I've just got to give it a second again. But this is the M21B and the Nitecore. Okay, it's just a much wider beam. It does produce a little more light, I think, but the M21B, as you can see, it actually produces a little more range. Like, you're looking at the I'll just put on the search function there, and it's stepped down again. So you know, I really think this M21B, the LPH 73B, is just an incredible performer. And it is a fairly cold night tonight in Melbourne. It's about, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8 degrees Celsius. So I'm giving these both a good, pretty good circumstances. I mean, in hotter temperatures it would probably step down faster. Okay, this is the spot beam for the EDC37, and the spot beam, well, the beam altogether for the M21B. So M21B, EDC37. So I mean, it's as expected for a much larger bezel. The EDC37 does extremely well to just produce this much throw even for these two smaller bezels. But yeah, it's just recharging again, maybe at halfway through the bar. So let's do another comparison. M21B and the EDC37. M21B, EDC37, M21B, yep, and that's stepped down again. So I hope that was helpful. And yeah, like I was saying, the EDC37 I think produces, both produce like a decent amount of light, but the EDC37 produces just a little bit more light, and especially into the floodlight there, as you can see, just more into your peripherals, but it doesn't last very long. Just put this up to the 1500 lumens mode, and maybe just swap this down to the 35% mode on the Convoy. So EDC37 1500 lumens, and the Convoy on M21B on 35%. This is on 10% now, and yeah, it seems to be producing like very similar amounts of light. Well, the EDC37 has got more spill, but in terms of hotspot and general spill, like the M21B is actually producing much brighter results, even at 10%. So let's just see if if it's recharged. I can give it one more go, and keep in mind the M21B has been, I've been keeping it on most of the time. So M21B, and then I've got the EDC37. Okay, step down again.